I'm Jack Henner with WCAT here with fellow WCAT member Reilly O'Neill and Hawks play-by-play voice Bob Rathbun. And Ms. Rathbun, first of all, this team is very young, very fun team. A lot different, though, from some of the previous Hawks teams that have been in playoff contention at this time of the year. What's a big challenge calling this team when, they're not necessarily in playoff contention going down the stretch?
Well, Jack, it really doesn't affect what I do. My job is to call these games and work for the team and work for Fox Sports Southeast, and we put our broadcast on. It doesn't matter if they're 82-0 or 0-82. It really doesn't affect what we do. It's a little more fun when you're in the playoffs and you get excited about the winning. But I think for this club, watching them grow and develop has its own benefits. To see the progress we've made, we're a much more competitive team now than we were in the first month of the season. And I think that's the young guys getting their feet wet. We're 55 games into the season now, and they're really not rookies anymore. They've played enough that they've got a pretty good feel now for the NBA game.
So not only do you call the Hawks games, but you also call basketball in the ACC. What's a busy weekend like when you've got the Hawks game one day and you've got to get over to a college basketball game the next day?
Well, I'm spoiled because it's the ACC, and I've been doing that league for 30 years on television. So it's great fun for me. I'm very close to a lot of the coaches and the schools for doing it as long as I have. So I look forward to them because it's the college atmosphere is so different than the NBA, the regular season grind. That's fun. And you get to see a lot of guys that you're going to see in the NBA one day. So it's great fun for me.
So you do a lot of games. How do you find the time to prepare for all of these games?
Well, you just have to carve it out, I guess.
Forward, power forward, set. Two guard, point guard. Any basketball box score you look at, that's the way they line up the players. Okay? Then the bench guys are in numerical order. Okay, and I do that for both teams.
Once we get into training camp, it's really 7 days a week, 24/7, 365. It's not, you rest when the season's over. You just got to blow through this and stay on top of it every day. It's not like you take a week off, for vacation. And it just doesn't happen. So you just have it in you. I've been doing it for so long, it's just second nature. But I think you just blow through it, You enjoy every day as it comes. They're all special. This game is exciting to me tonight as the one last night and the one coming up on Tuesday. So I think that's what keeps you going through it all. But yeah, it's a lot of work. It's a lot of time, but it's fun, and when you got a job that doesn't seem like work, it makes it a little bit easier to do the long hours.
You mentioned going from the NBA to calling ACC basketball games. Is it difficult to keep in mind all the different rule changes in the two separate leagues?
It's probably one of my biggest challenges because I get so used to doing so many pro games that I only do 6, 8, 10 college games, but I have to go back and refresh before every college game to remember 1-and-1s, team fouls, all the stuff that we don't have in this game. So it is a challenge, but the referees in college are very good to me, that they help me. And I have questions, hey, I'm not clear about the cone, or I'm not clear about an offensive foul, stuff like that. They'll say, oh, okay, remember this, this, and this. So they're really there to help me.
What advice would you give to aspiring broadcasters out there?
Well, you just touched on it. I think the rules is something that a lot of broadcasters, particularly young guys like y'all coming up, really don't spend the time. And I think when you're on the air, particularly play-by-play, because you got the mic when the play's happening live, Reilly, I think knowing the rules is paramount. I think you have to know them just like the referees do, because you've got to be able to explain to the audience when something weird happens, why it was called the way it was called. Fans get very emotional, and they'll start screaming at the referee, but they may not know the rule. I hear all the time, and maybe you do too, because you live in Atlanta, that they travel all the time in the NBA and it's never called. You ever heard that one?
Oh,
right?
All the time.
All the
James
time.
Harden.
But if you know the rules, no, in the pros, it's not a travel. So you get 2 steps after the gather in the NBA, and that throws a lot of people because you think that's the step right there when you gather. It's not. You get the gather and then 1, 2. So I think knowing the rules is paramount. I mean, you got to know the teams, you got to know the coaches, you got to know all the nuts and bolts.
Yeah.
But I think what separates the good broadcasters is the knowledge of the rules. You know, if you listen to Al Michaels on Sunday Night Football, if you listen to Mike Green do an NBA game, those guys are rules experts. And it comes across because something will happen, and Al and Mike are right there to explain it to the audience.
What's it like to call a game with a legend, an NBA legend like Dominique Wilkins?
Who? No, he's... You know something, Riley? I broadcast Dominique Wilkins as a high school player, a college player, and an NBA player. And now I got to sit next to him every night. I've had enough of Dominique Wilkins in my life. Now, he grew up in Washington, North Carolina. And when I was just starting off, my little high school team that I broadcast for played his team in the state quarterfinals. My team came in second that night. I think Dominique's teams went 76-1 in high school for 3 years. Washington, North Carolina. And you can influence friends by knowing the nickname of his high school team. The PAM Pack, P-A-M-P-A-C-K. Nobody would get that, right, Jack, in a million years. The PAM Pack, it's on the Pamlico River, and the Wolf Pack, and the packing company was right next door. PAM Pack. You win a lot of bar bets on that one after you become of age. Now, getting back to Dominique Wilkins, it's great fun. It's you know, he's a legend. He's a Hall of Famer. He's got a million stories. Loves the Hawks. You know, he's the best player we've ever had, and it's fun to, you know, get him to talk about basketball and seeing what he sees on the floor, because he can spot it before anybody else.
You mentioned growing up in North Carolina. I'm aware you started with your local radio station at around 12 years old.
Yep.
Walk us through a little bit how awesome that was to get the experience at that young of an age.
Well, it was mind-boggling looking back on it, you know. But going through it at the time, it didn't seem like all that big a deal, but now that I look back, it really was because of the great teachers and mentors that I had. I just picked up the telephone one day, and I called the radio station. I'm a 12-year-old kid. And the announcer answers the phone and said, well, come on down, we'll give you a tour of the radio station. Okay, so my mom and dad took me down, and it became an every Sunday ritual where I would just go down and hang out at the station. And then one day, the sports guy shows up. He says, well, if you like sports, come help us broadcast these baseball games. So we broadcast American Legion Baseball in the summertime. And the reason we did was because the team's a state championship team, and they are good to this day. And the whole town was invested, and that's why the games are on the radio. So that's how it started for me. And I've never looked back. I've never really had a job.
Okay. Well, that's one way to do it. Thank you so much. We're going to wrap this up with WCAT and Hawks play-by-play announcer Bob Rathbun. Thank you so much, Mr. Rathbun. We really appreciate it.
Great to have you with us. Enjoy your time at State Farm Arena.
Yes, sir.